Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast, Secrets with the Saddle, All Things Cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie. Now, before we get started, I have a couple freebies for you. And before you go, check them out. Go and follow me on Instagram for more cycling tips. Okay, so that's Sylvie _cyclist. And I'll see you there. So my free downloads, there are 3 of them. The first one is my 9 favorite hill climbing skills download. So there's 9 in there. Go try them out. Next time you do hill repeats, do them with purpose. And that is what's going to give you the performance improvement if you go out and you have something very specific to work on. The next thing is my gear bin checklist. Now, if you're one of those people who kind of is like all over the place, maybe you show up late because you can't find this, you can't find that, get this list. Check out the bike bin or bike bag that I use. A lot of my club members have purchased it just to get organized. And what we do is we just keep it in our car with all of our stuff in it. So literally all I have to do is take that with me, put it in my trunk, my shoes, my helmet, my gloves, my food, my my chamois butter, my sunscreen, everything's in there. So I never have to go looking for anything. And the last thing is my bike maintenance recording. So it's an hour, but this hour is going to give you so much information about how to use the tools that you need to be carrying with you on a daily when you're going out riding, how to use them, how to take your back wheel off, how to change a tire, how to patch a tube, how to repair a broken chain, and all sorts of other things in between. So go to askcoachsylvie.com to download all your free documents and that recording. And I'd love to know your feedback on them. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram for more amazing tips. Take care and enjoy the episode. All right. Thanks everyone for coming to another episode of Secrets from the Saddle, All Things Cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie. And we have an amazing guest on today, Dr. Aaron HUBBS. He is coming to us from Oregon on the West Coast, and we had to do this a couple times because we got our times all mixed up, but we're so happy to be here. I'm so glad because not only is he a cyclist, but he has an amazing program that he specializes working with men of all levels, from teens to, I imagine, seniors. So he really specializes in men's health, which I think is so needed these days. He's a naturopathic doctor. He has a transformation coach, so mind, body, spirit. And before we bring Dr. Aaron out, or maybe I'll just going to say Aaron, I'm going to give you a little bit of his background, and then we're going to get right into all the amazing things that he does. So he's a doctor, teacher, and storyteller, mentor, musician, and father. His education and training are as diverse as his hobbies and interests. So we're going to dive into those because I was just making fun of him before because he says he's into pickleball. So we're just like having a little chuckle about that because it's one of the most up and coming sports actually. And so what he's done is he's a competitive athlete and avid musician, and also volunteering through mentorship and service work programs currently. Now, in the past 15 years, Aaron has had a career as a naturopathic doctor and acupuncturist specialist in men's health, counseling, and mind-body medicine. From facilitating men's groups, running boys' mentor programs, leading weekend retreats, focusing on personal development and growth, or caring for his parents, Aaron has a love for health and wellness. His passion and purpose for working with men has led him to pivoting his clinical practice to running on an online health coaching business, focusing on helping men reinvent themselves and transforming their lives. So this is what a lot of things we're going to be talking about. His men's health programs are deep and meaningful work exploring mindset, vulnerability, intimacy, spirituality, nutrition, fitness, and hormones, just to name a few. In the near future, Aaron plans on facilitating more retreats for men and couples and starting a podcast. So, as well as writing a book. And I'm so excited to bring him on. So please welcome Aaron. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Oh my gosh. So like I said, he is a cyclist, and didn't have to necessarily be a cyclist for me to ask him to be on the podcast, because a lot of, listeners are men as well as women. A lot of women have, male partners. And so I think that this is just such an important topic to share and to spread the word on, that it was a no-brainer having him come on. So Aaron, I just really want you to, all right, so I was just asking you to give us a background, your cycling, how you got into and deciding to really, focus on men's health.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, riding a bike started super early, as a young boy. And, back then I talked to my kids about green spaces, because back then we had a lot of green space to ride around. And it was one of those times where, the moms and dads would say, see you at dinner. So we'd be out all day long, don't come home. Right. And the thing that I fell in love with, I did a lot of sports, and we'll get to that in a minute, but what I fell in love with was the bike. And so for us, it was building ramps and going into the dirt trails. And I grew up most of my life in Oklahoma, and there is, growing up, there was a guy there that still today is probably considered one of the legends of like BMX. His name's Matt Hoffman. They call him the Condor. So he's won a bunch of X Games, and he's, just an amazing, was a role model. He's I think he's exactly my same age, but by the time I was probably getting into high school, he was on the cover of every magazine. So we watched him do these half pipes and these jumps and all this stuff. So as a kid, we were trying to copy all that and build these ramps and that kind of thing. So that's kind of what got me just in love with the bike. And for me, it was just such a fun thing to be out there riding, pedaling, like I said, creating ramps and trails with my brother and a bunch of our friends on the block. And so that's really kind of what got me started. I always say the way I'm built is not for running. And I'm sure my runner friends and people would say that, because I grew up playing soccer. So I'm more of a sprinter type of mentality. So long distance running, marathons, never appealed to me. But by the time I got like early college, I started doing these sprint triathlons and started kind of understanding different, ways to bike and run these 10Ks and stuff. And so I think I was, and I'd always mountain biked. That was always my thing. I'd never had a road bike until, oh gosh, I was probably 24, something like that, when I got my first road bike. Yeah, I got one from a friend, and it was one of his hand-me-downs, and he built bikes, and it was a super awesome bike that he built for himself. So I got it, and just fell in love with the road bike. And from that point on, I never looked back. And so for me, still to this day, it's something I don't do it as much. There for probably 20 years, it was my life. I mean, it was, it was something I did. I could go on a 30-mile ride in the morning, and by evening, I'm going on another ride. It was one of those things. It's just, it gripped me. And I think for me, before I even knew about low impact on the joints and how, right, all those kind of things, it felt good to me, and I just really appreciated being out in nature. I appreciated being able to ride super fast, going out with buddies and friends, and we'd have some great conversations. But also for me, just it became kind of my therapy. It actually, it really was something that I understood, and it still to this day is like nothing else in my life, that I'm able to get on the bike. And I probably only ride maybe twice a week at this point, not daily like I used to. And I have a trainer that I can spin in the garage if it's raining here in Portland. But for me, 2 hours out on the bike, out in the world, you know, those days I'm having a tough day, I try to run, you know, spin as fast as I can to get away from my problems kind of thing. But it's also just this very meditative. And I know a lot of cyclists relate to making circles with the pedals and just really being in that zone where sometimes I'm listening to a podcast, sometimes I'm listening to music, sometimes I'm doing nothing but just listening to my breath and thinking. And so for me, it really is this meditative, almost spiritual thing that every time I come back, I have processed information differently than if I'm working out or just walking in the trails or something. So that's what it's really become for me. It's not something I do for my workout. I used to do it a lot for fitness and to stay fit and training, all that. And it still helps that, but that's not what I look at it for anymore. And, you know, I've watched all the tours forever and ever, but now it's different. I mean, I almost don't even want to say this. I didn't watch one stage of the Tour de France this year. I know. And if you know me, my kids were like, what? Because I buy a package.
This year.
I can watch every, you know, every tour. I get, you know, I used to buy the package every year to like watch every single tour, Roubaix, whatever. And this, I don't know, something has shifted in me where other things, or, you know, other things have kind of gotten my attention more. And so I still love cycling, but it's less about what it used to be for me. And now it's clearly just my love for the bike, love for being out on rides. And I really look forward to that once or twice a week ride where I know that I get to go be with myself. I get away from everything. And I pretty much just ride by myself now. I sometimes will call a friend or try and coordinate that. But, you know, as life's been busy and definitely through COVID, it was still my escape. I could still get out on a bike away from all the people, not have any issues around that. And so that's still what it is for me. When I turn, I'll be 50 this November. So when I turn 40, I, now my ex-wife, but I had a long talk with my wife and said at that time and said, is it cool? Can I get the green light to buy whatever road bike I want to buy?
Oh gosh, what did you go for?
My gift to myself. And so, you know, I still have the same one. I don't know if I'll ever need another one. So I love it. And, you know, so it's, that was a really fun time to get the kind of the road bike of my dreams or whatever. And, you know, so that's what it is for me. All my kids ride, they all have bikes. I kind of, a long time ago, I kind of bought into or fell in love with Specialized, that company. So we all have Specialized. That's pretty much
what I have.
Yep. And so, yeah, so I ride with my kids. If I'm going to ride with anybody, that's who I ride with, and we'll go on, you know, different kind of rides than I would by myself or whatever. Yeah. And I've never in my entire life had never broken a bone in my body. And I've been a hardcore athlete and had a lot of injuries until I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. My son, who's now 9 years old, pulled in front of me just enough that our tires hit, and I go crashing and broke my right, you know, elbow.
Oh no, not the elbow.
Only time I've ever broken a bone. So, but I've had enough road rash to, you know, brag about all that. I've had a lot of injuries on the bike, and it never deterred me or kept me from wanting to get. I would always be sitting in recovery. Couldn't wait till I could get back on the saddle. You know, it's one of those things. So it's definitely still in me. And I appreciate what it does for me fitness wise, but more on a psychological level. I think for me, I found that thing, and I meditate a lot. I do all those other things, but cycling is one of those things it's irreplaceable for what that does for me on a, you know, the internal alchemy level.
I can totally relate to you, Aaron, because just recently, like, you know, before I used to look for people to ride with. Now I'm just like, you know, sometimes I always like prefer riding by myself so I can reflect. And I do a lot of thinking too. Like I do podcasts. So I don't listen to music, but I like, you know, you have those internal arguments in your head. Like you're like, oh, you know, those, and then you're thinking and strategizing about business, and or you're just thinking about life, and sometimes I just like to zone out like that. And
I don't know if you've discovered this. So when I do all that now, someone turned me on to the idea, not when we're on bikes, but I'll have my, earbuds in, and I'll tell Siri to make a note, that kind of thing. So I'll come back with 10 or 15 things that I've thought of during that time, instead of wait until I get home to write them down, which is what I used to do. Now I just say them into my, into the little microphone thing as I'm writing, and some really amazing, brilliant things come from that. And I know a lot of purists hear that and they're like, no, you shouldn't have listened to anything, or you should, whatever, it's dangerous. But it's something that I found really valuable, just to kind of make notes of those things coming up in my mind that I want to, it's kind of like dreaming,
Siri?
when we wake up, we need to talk to our, write our dreams down.
Right.
But I've had some really breakthrough moments just going back over the notes that I've created out on those long 2 or 3 hour rides.
I know. And sometimes I just go on like really big drunkalogs of, like, if I was doing a presentation on, okay, so let me just go back. You say you asked Siri to give you a note, to write a note down. Can I do that?
You can. We've come a long way since
because
technology.
Like you said, there's a lot of times when, you have that brilliant idea and you totally forget, and okay, I'm going to have to check that
I actually
out.
got that idea from a friend, said something, but a musician. I was listening to a story one time, and they said that's what they do. They'll be out somewhere, they'll hear somebody say something that sounds like, man, that'd be a great thing for a lyric or a thing. And they'll just talk into their phone, or they'll, speak into their phone to write it down. And again, notepads are kind of a thing of the past, whether that's good or bad. And so I kind of took that idea. What was that?
You can't really do that when you're cycling, because I like to say, you like, Siri, make a note. This is what, and that's what you do.
Or a reminder. Sometimes I'll think of something that I've totally forgotten that I needed to do.
Yeah.
Right. And so, there's times to zone out. And sometimes, like I said, I don't even take anything with me. I'll have my phone in one of my back pockets or something. But, so there are moments where I do get a lot of work done out on my rides.
Well, we're going to talk about that after this podcast, because I'm sure people are like, I don't want to hear about it. Or maybe they do. What do you mean you can take notes? So, okay, maybe you should just give us a little tutorial, not too long, on how that works on your phone.
Okay. Well, there's 2 ways. You can, I know, so earbuds, you can just hold it down for 3 seconds, push the little, little thing in your ear, and it will take you directly to Siri. Yeah. Or you can say, I think you have to, hi Siri, or whatever the little prompt is, or, you just say a little thing. And same with Apple Watches, you can talk right into your watch, same way, and keep notes into your watch.
Can you do this? I have an Android. Again, I have to research it then.
I think it's similar, but I think there's some voice prompt, and you can say, a reminder, a calendar, or a note.
Oh, okay. Voice prompt. Okay, everybody. So that's a voice prompt on your phone to take a voice text note. And then you can go back into, okay. All right, cool. We've all learned something. And like, seriously, Aaron, there's so many things that I like that go through the brain when you're on a ride. And if you don't ride and you're listening to this podcast, it's time to get on any kind of bike. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be on a Specialized like us. You just have to go for a tootle and things will come to you.
I hear the same thing from runners. My marathon and ultra runner friends out on those long runs, they're processing the same. So I think runners can relate to that thing that, that we're talking about.
All right. So cycling has taken you to your business, or going to school and becoming a doctor of naturopath, a naturopathic doctor. And so where did that avenue lead you to specifically go into men's health? Like, where was it in that path that you made that transition?
Yeah. So I was fascinated as a kid because I was very active, a lot of bumps and bruises and scrapes and stuff. So I think, the kind of cheesy story is that I just had a lot of scabs that would heal, and I couldn't I just thought that was so cool, you know. And so I saw the innate ability of the body at a really young age that got me curious, and I started getting super curious about how all that works. And, you know, I was just young, so I didn't know anything about, you know, science or medicine or anything that really. But by the time I got into high school, and I, you know, full disclosure, I wasn't the best student in high school. You know, I think I scraped by with maybe a 3.0 or something like that, you know. So I had a lot of fun and a lot of fun stories in there that, so I'm not going to brag and say I was the model student in high school, but I was curious, and that curiosity just started helping me form some ideas that there was two things or a couple things I was interested in. Human behavior. I was so curious. I was one of those observers. I would just watch people more than people watch for the thrill of it or fun. I would maybe analyze or, you know, study people and try and understand why do we all act the way we act? And so my first degree is in psychology. So I went to college, and, you know, that was my first love. I knew I was going to do science. I knew I was very interested in medicine. I didn't know what kind of doctor. I didn't know anything about naturopathic medicine because, you know, you and I are old enough to say the internet wasn't around. I couldn't get on.
I have one question.
Yeah.
So when you're in high school and you said you're an observer, was there one person or a couple people that you kind of like analyzed, or was it everybody?
Everybody.
Can you think of like one person you're just like, okay, I'm gonna watch this person.
No, and it was, I would say it was almost to a fault, because I would just stand back. I would stand back and just watch. You know, some people, and I'm very outgoing, but I think that gets confused sometimes with extroverted. I'm actually kind of an introverted person, but I'm very outgoing. And so for me, I would just kind of sit back a little bit and watch people at a party or in class, you know, in the classroom. And I'm very open to talk. I'm very comfortable talking to any age group, and I always have been. Even as a young kid, my parents would always say, you can just talk to our friends and older people. And so I'm very comfortable with most settings and always have been. But looking back now, and I'm still a little bit like that, where I study my environment. I kind of pay attention to things. And so there wasn't just one or two people. It was kind of everybody, to be honest. And I just watched and just wanted to understand people. And some people I was trying to understand, how did they get to be so great? Whether that was pro athletes or musicians or really famous people. And then on the other side, people that I saw in life that were struggling, because I grew up in a very service-oriented family. My grandparents and my parents, I was doing soup kitchens and volunteering from a very young age. And I would also look at the people struggling at that point, and then try and make sense of that, or try and study that or understand that. So it was kind of everybody. And so I wanted to understand psychology, the mind, kind of human behavior. So that was my first degree, which like I said, I already knew I wanted to do science. And like I tell my kids all the time, you don't have to do it like I did it, because I was a career student. I was in school for a long time, lots of degrees, lots of all that kind of stuff. And so then I followed that up with a biology degree right after my psych degree, where most of my friends were getting out of school. And I've talked about this a lot with people that I was in school for a long time when everybody was getting out, going to work. I was a student. So that's great on some levels, but I also I missed out on some things in the real world, because academics is not the real world. It's academic, and you're in this little bubble of information. But I loved it. And like I said, high school was not my claim to fame, but when I got to college, I was a good student and paid attention and learned how to study. Actually realized that information comes into me, and I learned how to memorize, and really enjoyed it. It wasn't a chore. I didn't always love studying, but it was something that came easy to me once I figured out how I process information, or how I studied. So through all that time, I started really forming this mind-body connection, because like I said, from psychology into biology, and then I did graduate work in evolutionary biology, all before medical school. And at that time, I didn't know much about naturopathic medicine. So I asked around, I had read a few books by Andrew Weil. He did like spontaneous healing and a few other books. So at one point I went and visited his school out in Arizona, which he was trying to do some cutting edge stuff. And so I was looking around at some alternatives because I just knew I didn't totally think that way. For me, I've always thought a little bit more alternative, a little more natural, or, you know, I just didn't know if there was other versions. And I remember I'm sitting in an interview for osteopathic school and barely squeaked in to even get an interview after, you know, did the MCATs and all that stuff. And the interviewer, I don't know if he was a dean or what his title was, but he even said this quote, which is interesting because I live in Oregon now, but he said, reading your essay, listening to your story, how you talk about medicine, you're going to be swimming upstream like a salmon. You're like in medicine. This is not, you know, you need call my friend. He's the president of this school out in Oregon. It's called Naturopathic Medicine. I'd honestly never heard of it because, again, I couldn't just get on Google and you know, search it. So I just had to go by what I could find.
Like this is the place you need to go based on.
Yeah, because he said, you know, he said, I think you're going to be, I don't know what your journey, I don't know if you're going to get into this school or whatever, but I think you're going to be surprised, or I don't know what adjective you know, I think you might disappointed or disheartened or something, because the way you're describing is not how this medicine works. And so I called Portland, Oregon, and talked to at that time, the president of the school that I ended up eventually going to, and came out and literally within a month's time after that interview, calling this gentleman, I was on a plane coming out to Portland and, you know, interviewed at that school and all the different schools at that time. There was only a handful in the state. So I went to all the different places that they had these naturopathic school and just loved it. And just really felt like I'd found my calling, I'd found my purpose, my place. And so I ended up, after getting accepted into all those different schools, settled on Portland and moved out here in 2000 to start naturopathic school, which also had a classical Chinese medicine program. So I did both programs at the same time. And if you do naturopathic school, it's 4 years. If you do the Chinese medicine, it's 4 years. But if you combine them, it was 6 years. So I did the 6-year program. Like I said, I was in school from 1990 when I graduated from high school to 2006.
Well, I know if we're the same age, so you probably graduated high school of like 89,
90.
roughly 90.
Yep.
And I'm just like doing the math. I'm like, oh yeah.
Right. So for 16 years I was in school.
Yeah. What was your student loan like finishing?
Let's not go there. Let's not go there. I was having a good time till you brought that up.
I was just like, well, we could all do the calculations, can't we?
I didn't have any undergraduate. I had no debt coming to school, but when I got here, that's where and you know, it's funny because that's actually become my number one goal in life is to get out of debt. Right. And it's been this like thing I pushed to the side. And again, that's for another conversation, but it's funny you bring it up because I was kind of afraid of it for a long time. And just, you know, it's so much. And now it's just been one of those things like, let's face
you got to get it done. Right. Because you don't want to retire with that. I'm reading.
Oh, I don't even like, yeah, there's just energy around it. It's not as much about the number of the money. It's more about the energy around it for me. And I've identified that that's that thing, but yeah, so that's how I got here. And, you know, in high school, college, I'd always done mentor programs. I was the camp counselor at these kind of ecology kind of programs and these fun summer camps. So I'd learned very early that I was a good mentor. I was a good teacher. And I found that was something I felt very passionate about. I loved connecting to people and just being, I guess, a role model. I really appreciated that, you know, seeing people look up to me, and it kind of invited me to be a good, you know, be a better person, I guess I'd say, and to just try and emulate what these people were showing up to seek out. So that was my love for mentorship and teaching. And I have just had amazing mentors and teachers in my own life. And so, you know, I don't think I just stumbled into men's health. I think it's something that called me out early, because I have always been, I would say maybe I don't have a ton of superpowers, but one of my superpowers is I've always cultivated. My parents brought me up in that way. I've always been able to take a look within. I've never been afraid of that. I've always been okay with seeing a counselor when that was needed, or I've never seen any stigma or shame around any of that kind of work. And as I've learned as a guy and as a man, that's not normal. You know, a lot of guys, my friends, just a lot of guys I've worked with have struggled with some of that because it's not something that is trained from the ground up. It's not something that we are taught to do, generally speaking. But for me, it was just something I felt comfortable doing. So I think for me, it called me out as much as I looked, you know, I called it out to just really have a love and passion to work with men. And so, yeah, so that's kind of how I got there. And I still do a boys mentor program. And used to be younger. So it was like 9 years old to 10. We called it before the flood of fire, before the testosterone kicks in.
Yeah, right.
Right. So we'd get a hold
you
of
get
these
them.
boys.
That's probably the best time to mentor them because they're like little sponges and they'll actually listen to you.
I have a 9-year-old right now and he's still so like pliable. I'm still his hero until
I know.
Right.
I have a 9-year-old son too, and he does. It's surprising. He looks up to me, "Mommy, put me to bed." And you know what I'm reading to him, Aaron? I'm reading him The Wealthy Barber.
Oh, great!
I don't know if you ever came across.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, and he's just like, and I laugh because I'm like, okay, what am I gonna read to you now that the book's done? I'm like, oh, we're gonna talk about money.
That's so cool.
And he's like, read it more to me, like keep reading. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I think I've done something good because if there's anyone out of my kids who is going to be like the spender on, it was going to be him.
That's actually really cool. That actually brought something up for me that I learned when they were little. I would read to them a little bit, but their mom was a little bit more of that. And what I did is I told stories, and I've always been a storyteller. My husband tells stories. And so my kids, I have 3 kids, two sons and a daughter. They literally know every story about my life. All the bad things I did, all the times I got in trouble.
That's awesome.
All pretty much everything. And you know, when I was putting them to bed, I'd say, what do you want to hear? I used to work in an emergency room when I was in my early 20s. They wanted to know every story about the ER life. So that was a fun thing because I've learned I love to tell stories. And so I see the value of reading to our children, but I just love to tell stories. And so, but back to the men's health and now coming kind of to fruition, I realize now more than ever, it's so needed. It's so needed. And I think I've realized, and I've heard the feedback a lot, I'm good at it. It's something I'm really able to connect to men, whether it's been through sports or all the different things, but I also there's something about who I am that can create a space that more times than I can count, I've had men tell me, I've never told anybody this. You know, I love those moments because that is so
You're like,
special.
Yeah. You're like, oh.
Yeah, and so I'm like this. I'm the keeper of secrets because as a doctor, there is that relationship that is super safe and secure. And I think a lot of patients, when they go see their doctor, they know they can be honest. And so I've found over time that that's something I really can connect to men and help them feel safe and comfortable to talk about, whether it's healthcare stuff that's very, embarrassing or awkward to talk about, or they might be afraid to know the actual information of what might be going on. They'd rather maybe be in denial, but also about some deeper work. And I think that's become my focus, is that, again, I'm almost 50 years old and I've learned through my own, all those degrees I have, all that stuff, honestly, pales in comparison to my life experience and all the hardships that I've gone through. Most recently at 45, I had to literally start over. Got divorced, financial ruin. I had a map. Like you said, I was a career student. I had an agenda. I had a vision. And so everything seemed to be perfect. I was married. I had kids. I thought, oh, everything's, you set that GPS in the car, you follow the map, you follow the directions. And at some point, the GPS was telling me to turn left in my marriage, and I kept going right or kept going straight. And so looking back, I realized if I would have probably paid more attention or been a lot more able to be honest, I could have, probably things might be different, who knows? But I realized that things were, looking back in the rearview mirror, it's always easy, looking now, but things weren't great. And, and I think I've matured and been honest with myself to really understand and own that I wasn't doing the work. I wasn't really in my marriage. In life, I was making some bad financial decisions and different things like that led me to, at 45, having to be that guy, that guy that's just the midlife crisis or whatever, midlife reset, as some people have called it, right? But that
get it done early, not like later on.
I'm laughing about it, but at that time, anyone who's gone through that knows it's no laughing matter. It was literally probably one of the hardest things, if not the hardest thing I've ever had to go through, because you never see that coming. You never see that situation coming. And so fortunately, I had what I call the tools and the skills, and I had all the things in place that I'd talked to everybody about. And again, I've meditated my whole life. I've been healthy and fit and all those. That went out the window. For probably 9 months, I was not on the bike. I was not working out. I wasn't even playing my guitar. And I play music every day for at least an hour to 2 hours. It is another one of those things that is like my therapy, my thing. So really out of shape. I think I'm pretty fit and comfortable around 180. I got up to 220, and that's 40 pounds. I mean, it's my world record, and I felt terrible. And I looked in the mirror, all the pictures, I destroyed and threw away some pictures that I just, you're looking at yourself and you just don't know how you got there. And so that map that I had, that plan, I was lost. Like I just, sitting in that at 45 years old. And it took me a while. It took me probably a year to a year and a half to get my traction again, to get the wind back in my sails, so to speak. But from that point on, it's been this rebuilding, this reinventing, recalibrating, re-engineering, whatever word fits, whatever.
So,
but that's what it's been. And it's been the most liberating and amazing thing that now that's what I want to help men do. Because I look around.
Yeah. So this segues into like, what are your programs like for men? So now that you've got like a lot of, let's just say your own life experience that you can relate to a lot of men, how are you putting it together for your programs or your retreats? Like, what are you doing now? And then like you're talking about the future. So I'll ask about the future in a minute, but what do you have together right now that somebody could access?
Just a quick segue. So there's been it was a tough moment with COVID for a lot of us, and some people had tragic stories, so I don't want to underplay that. But for me, there was a lot of silver linings, and my kids and I were probably on a lot of levels the happiest, the healthiest. Our mental state, we focused on a lot of things in that department. But what it also opened me up to was the brick and mortar concept, that having a clinic, having that seemed, I didn't need that anymore. I really understood that I wanted something bigger. I wanted to have more impact than just helping men in Portland locally. And so that really opened my mind up to this whole online, this whole kind of entrepreneurial coaching situation where I'm a hands-on, like you said, the acupuncture, I do adjustments head to toe. So I work a lot with structural things, a lot of athletes, but I've realized that actually my gift is different than being people's doctor. It's more of their teacher, mentor, guide. to get to the places they want to go, whether that's lose weight, better relationships with their wife or partner, be a better father, those kind of things. So what I've learned is that I can reach people and men globally, which I'm not quite there, but I'm working with men in different states through Zoom and through on the online thing. And so that's what I've really moved into. And so the program, and it's as you know, we're in the same mastermind. It's an evolution. I thought I was pivoting. I thought I was going to have one pivot from clinical to this online world.
You're like, forget it. I'm jumping over that. I'm doing something different.
But it keeps evolving, and I keep understanding it better. And so for right now, it's changing, but I have a 90-day program that I think I'm switching into an 8-week program because, but for right now, there's still a 90-day and probably an 8-week program. And I'm going to create different ones too, monthly, a lot of different ones, but think of it like this. I was seeing patients, seeing guys, let's say once a month. They'd come in and see me, what I would call almost like a tune-up. They'd come in, I'd rotate the tires, we'd talk about some things, I'd give them a few things to work on. I wouldn't see them for another month. And not to say that was getting boring, because I don't want to undermine or whatever. It just wasn't, the impact wasn't there for me. So I've condensed what somebody might see in a year long, 12 visits once a month. I've condensed that into 90 days or 12 weeks. And so that's the idea. Once a week, there's a different topic. We go through Zoom, we talk, first, because to me, the most important thing is mindset. Nothing else, I believe, nothing else can get us there until our mindset we can wrap our brain and our mind around a concept. And so, first week is mindset. Then we moved into, and I don't know the exact order right off, but, nutrition, fitness, spirituality, marriage or relationships. I work a lot with men in sexual vitality that have erectile dysfunction and other issues like that. So that's a topic. Money and even people that make a lot of money might have interesting relationship to that. And it's not just people that are struggling financially. It's also people that have a lot of money, but what is your relationship to money? What's your mindset? What's your fear, worry around money?
That's a big thing. That's
so we talk about
like
hormones.
A subject on its own.
We look into hormones, and I'm not playing their doctor. What I do is I recommend them go talk to their doctor about getting hormone panels done, or if testosterone needs to be in play. So I've really moved into a coaching situation, and so kind of just getting started to really pivot that all to the online world. But super excited. And some of the work I'm doing,
sounds great.
It's really cool.
It's funny, Aaron, and I don't, but when I think of hormones, I always think of women's hormones. Like women are the only ones who have hormones. But my girlfriend, who is a hormone specialist, she's like, oh no, men have lots of hormones too. And I'm like, really?
Well, it's funny because I think women, we see that as a monthly cycle, and I have a daughter. It's very, it's there. I mean, we can, but I almost think men are on a daily cycle. Our hormones are so interesting, and we're all on a daily cycle. But I see this because a lot of men can go from being testosterone dominant, and for different reasons, they can testosterone can back up, and all hormones are related, just steps away from becoming other hormones. So everything kind of starts with cholesterol, and whether it's prednisone, estrogen, testosterone, they're all just branches from each other. And so a lot of men have a lot of estrogen dominance, and you can see that in their, they take on female characteristics because they're estrogen dominant. So hormones are just as powerful in men as it is in women. And a lot of men at my age start to really dip in their testosterone for all kinds of reasons, but age being one of them. And so a lot of men are struggling in their life, whether that's focus, clarity, energy, libido, sleep, because of really low testosterone. And hormones drive the train, as I say. If our hormones are out of balance, whether we're men or women, you can't lose weight. You can try as hard as you want, but if your hormones are out of balance, happiness, is hormones. We get, you know, neurotransmitters and hormones get dumped into our system in those ways. So hormones are a big thing. And that's definitely 1 week of the talk is I get guys to go get tested if they haven't looked at their hormones. But the deeper work, all that, you know, all the fitness and the food, and, you know, I go over their nutrition. But the interesting part is when men are finally ready to start doing some introspection, which again, vulnerability, intimacy, those are scary words. And, you know, and I honor men where they're at, because I understand that that's not something that's, you know, taught to us or that's socially acceptable. And you know, I'm as alpha dude as the next guy. I love sports. I love to, you know, to see what my body can do and all that kind of stuff. And also there's another side of that equation it is about meditation. It is about deep breathing. It is about taking inventory and looking at the different parts of our lives that we need to take a look at and make some minor adjustments and stuff like that. So I love that work too, to balance out.
I'll send my husband to you, because I call him like, I'm like, I can't handle your little, I know his moods are based on, you know, stuff that's going, and here's like stuff that's going on in the house, right? Like us, you know, finances, kids, all that stuff, like just blows up the emotions. And I'm like, you're so moody. Like, I thought I was bad. I'm more the guy sometimes in the,
well, and you're touching on all those things you just described. Create a sense of stress. And I think that's a really big deal for all of us, to start identifying in the things we perceive as stressful and learning ways to deal with our stress. Because all of us feel that. I mean, good Lord, any of us with kids, or I mean, any of us that are still breathing and living feel stress and identify things that are stressful. And so I hear a lot of that, and I feel that in my own life for sure. And so that's a big part of, you know, what I work on with men, is just to identify what are the stressors in your life, and what are ways we can work on that to feel less stressful when things come our way.
Well, yeah, we know what it is. It's and it the thing is that the good thing is that we have decent communication. It can always get better. And I know it stresses him. And sometimes it's some of the things that I'm doing. And we've all, it's like, there's things that I expect him to be on, like, that are not my non-negotiables, and he has his non-negotiables. And, you know, like, we both have to be respecting those non-negotiables, or there's trouble, right? Like, it's so, and that's where the stress comes from, because some of them are like kind of falling off the wayside. And so, you know, with your, are you doing your program right now, or are you still in the one-on-one kind of coaching? Like, have you launched your program, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've done what I call a beta run, because I'm still tweaking it. But yeah, it's ready. I mean, you know, right now it is one-on-one, and I think eventually what I'm wanting to move into is have some group situations where, you know, I can work with 10 or 15 guys at a time, where maybe it's less, you know, just going super deep all the time, but really just identifying, you know, I'm a guy, we all have the same issues. Me too. Like, you know, I'm not immune to it. And I would never say, there is no finish line in this work. We're never going to arrive to this place where I'm constantly working on myself and identifying things. So I'm right there with every guy I work with. It's not like I'm, you know, the almighty teacher and the guru. Right. I'm right there with them. It's like, when I do mentor programs and work with men in retreats or live settings, we all sit in a circle. You know, I'm not up on some pedestal looking down and lecturing to anybody. I'm right there with all men I work with, because I identify with what they're going through. And sometimes they've gone through something that I haven't, and I learned from them. You know, so for me, it's that kind of situation where we're all equals in that place. But I've learned some skills. I have some knowledge that I want to share with men and help them, you know, make some adjustments and become more peaceful and happy with their lives. And so, yeah, the program is set right now. Like I said, I'm tweaking it, but you know, it's ready to go. And I'm, you know, I've got some guys, I'm working with right now, and going to continue to do my work with teenagers and do that kind of stuff. And,
get them
really
while they're young so they can figure it out before they hit adulthood.
Well, as you know, having kids, and, it's one of those things that you might, and a lot of listeners our age, I didn't feel the stress that these younger people are feeling right now.
I agree with you totally. Like growing up in the 80s, gosh, I'm trying to think about what was ultimately stressful. Maybe maybe one bully at school. I know I had one. But
yeah.
Other than that, it was, we partied, we had school, we had sports, and maybe this stress came from home environment.
Yeah, that's true. Some kids did grow up with a lot of stress if there was things going on at home and things like that. Now, I mean, look around.
It comes everywhere.
Every parent that has teenagers or younger, even middle, there's a lot of increased depression, anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, and with social media and younger people, I'm so glad that phones weren't invented back then. I'm so glad for my parents, because I know how triggered I get with my kids and their phones and the social media aspect. But, there's tons of podcasts and documentaries being done right now, of course, on what this impact is on a psychological, emotional, and every other aspect of younger people and adults. But I think it's super important for the work I'm doing with teenagers, with young boys, and I think all parents, reach out to your community and find people for your sons and daughters to work with, because there's a lot out there. There's a lot of people identifying and doing great work, and just and I lead with questions when I work. Same with men, but when I work with teenagers, especially, I ask them questions, and they look at me like, "Thank you so much." I asked one kid a couple of weeks ago. I said, what things make you angry? And he looked at me, he's like, that is such a great question. And he went off for 5 minutes, 10 minutes about all the things that make him angry right now. And for him to have that platform and to know that, again, there's confidentiality. And I let him know, like, hey, the things we talk about, they're confidential. And I'll ask, and I said, if something happens that I will let you know, but there might be something I need to talk to your parents about. And I do, but I let them know ahead of time. And so there's this rapport, or this really neat connection that happens, that there's some trust, or a lot of trust and safety, that they just talk about their lives. And for a young person to have that platform or that ability is priceless, because they need a place to talk about and learn to identify more than just maybe with their parents. I was a kid. That doesn't work. I didn't want to talk to my parents about my real problems. They were part of the problem.
Oh, yeah, seriously. I know I have an 18-year-old, and I just, and I look at her life, and I look at my life when I was a teenager, and I try to stay calm in most conversations until I get, unless I get, but the thing is that, for a lot of times I like her to know that, even though she went through tough times in school, we went through tough, like, it's not only just her. And I want her to, be able to talk to me about these things, and maybe just laugh at them, because, she said she was bullied in school. I'm like, well, I'll tell you about my experience. And, and I try to, make her choose sometimes, like we always have choices. Like we have A or B. There's rarely a C option, and which one are you going to choose? Because then it has, it comes with consequences or alternatives or benefits, or, and I try and make her make those decisions, because I don't like to make them for her unless, like, I really have to step in. But I try and be as gentle as possible, because I know stress is there. I'm like, do you want to see me stressed? I'm freaking stressed. we're
right?
stressed seeing you, you're stressed seeing me. And you know, like divorce is so rampant now, like with kids, and like 50%. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Like, you know, there were never divorced families when we went to school, as far as I could tell. My
Married.
parents waited till we were finished school. They
Mm.
got
But my
divorced.
parents are still married, and I think most of all their friends are getting close to, 60 years. I think my parents are at 57 or 58 years. On the kid topic, what I have, there's a rule my kids made me commit to, is I no longer can say, well, when I was a kid, dot dot,
Oh,
because they don't want it's a different time now. They want to hear me relate to them, but they want
oh,
to feel like they can talk about their life without me saying, well, when I was a kid, we just played outside all the time. Why do you want to be inside all the time? So I relate to them in their stories. But I'm learning that letting them tell me their story of their experience, as opposed to me overlaying what I experienced, but I do think being a parent, being open to our children in that way. One thing that I require my kids, and this is where my tough love comes in as a dad, they have to move their body. I don't care what sport they do, they get to pick. My daughter's done aerial silk. She did hip hop dancing,
cool.
So whether they all ride bikes, we go on hikes, but that's something really important for grown-ups, adults, but also for our kids and younger people. Music instruments. I'm a musician. All three of my kids play instruments.
That's one thing
Guitar,
I want
piano. My oldest son's 15. He's a trumpet player, and he's in band and stuff like that. And so I think these kind of things, at least from my perspective, balance out how much our kids are looking at screens. And I know through COVID, everybody was looking at screens. You and I are on a screen now. We're running our business through the internet and through Zoom. So that's not going to change. But what we can do is balance that out with movement, with hobbies, with other interests that I think make us well-rounded and really help our kids and younger people, is just to learn that as they're growing up. It is about balance, and maybe we're never in balance, but we can offset so much screen time with other things.
Oh,
right?
for sure. I mean, and I think it's important as adults to set that tone, right? Because a lot of, if you think about some kids who sit on devices, like, are their parents that active enough, or to force their kids to get off them? Because really, it's, for a parent, it's like fighting with your child, and
it's brutal.
You have to win.
That's our leverage. You want to have leverage.
Yeah.
That's your leverage. I'm going to take your phone away, or
That's right. You're not going to get.
I explained it to my kids. There's 24 hours. Let's say we sleep for 8 hours, and if they're on a device for 8 hours, which they could watch a Netflix show, look at their phone, maybe play a video game, that's 1/3 of their day. They just are on a screen or on a device or something, and that just feels like way too much, even in today's standards. So I think really minimizing or regulating, teaching young people to regulate is a great thing, whether it's sugar or screen time or whatever. But it's here to stay. So I think we as parents and as adults, to just get outside more, move our bodies more, really commit to that kind of healthy lifestyle.
Get on your bicycle.
Get on your bikes.
So Aaron, can they find somewhere should they just follow you on Instagram or in Facebook?
Yeah, either of those right now is where I'm at. My website's in the process of being created and all that, and hopefully within a couple weeks, at the a month feels like way too long down the road, but pretty soon the website will be up and running, and that'll be a platform that'll explain all the stuff. But yeah, I'm open to, definitely follow me, Dr. Aaron HUBBS, on Instagram, and just Aaron HUBBS on Facebook. Either of those work. I have a much bigger presence on Facebook, just because that's been more where I've been, but I'm trying to move it into Instagram a little bit. But either of those, also, reach out to me, send me a DM or email me, or, connect to me if you have questions or you have interest of anything I've talked about, or my programs, or anything like that. I'm old school. I love quick little phone calls. You know, I text and
I
do all
know,
that
eh?
too. But I love
just
like
pick up the phone, Sylvie.
that 10-minute, you know, just, you know, I always offer that to people before they want to work with me, whether that was back in my patient day, you know, clinical days or now. We got to feel it out. So I really appreciate when people just want to have a quick conversation and ask some questions and get to know me a little bit better in that way.
So September, let's say, is that when you're going to start the next one?
Well, you know, see, that's the interesting thing is when I start
I'm going to push you on this.
That's going to be, there'll be more set times. But right now, this is more of a revolving thing. There is no set time. It's not like I have, you know, for right now, there's a program. So I, you know, I have guys at different levels in, you know, the program kind of thing. So I could,
so you can start anytime.
We could start tomorrow. Yeah.
All right. So guys, if this is piquing your interest, or if there's a lady on here who maybe thinks that this might be a good idea for their partner,
big time.
This is who you're going to talk to. And so you, like you said, you can start anytime, which is good. And I should have said how Aaron and I met each other is we're in the same mastermind. And that's why I was pushing him to say, okay, when's your program start? Right? It's like, when are you going to put in stone? But that's good. So, and you can also find him. So you said your website's on. So Instagram and Facebook is where to find him. And before we leave, Aaron, do you have anything that you want to say before we wrap up to the audience?
Well, first, I want to acknowledge you. I mean, I'm really looking up to all the people and admiring the people that already have podcasts going and have things that, you know, and yours is doing really well. And I just want to comment and commend you on that. That's awesome. And I think your topic around cycling and that is just spot on, because I think it's a passion for you. And I can always, you know, I felt that from the beginning before I even really got to know you. You know, I think the only thing I want to leave listeners with, the audience with, is I'm a broken record, or that squeaky wheel when it comes to gratitude. And I think that is such an easy, deep breathing, focusing on our breathing and gratitude. I think that's what I would leave people with, is that there's no replacement for either of those. And just a simple, you know, I don't care how stressed we all get, whatever issues we all have going on, coming back to a place of gratitude is life-changing. I was raised on it. It's something I raise my kids on. But when we eat, we go around the circle and say something we're grateful for.
Such a good idea. That's what I wanted to do with my family, actually.
Yeah. And so I think that's a simple thing I would leave. You know, some of the things I probably brought up feel complicated or like a big deal for men to come and talk about these different things, or nutrition, but just instilling gratitude journal, just sitting, you know, 3 to 5 things we're grateful for when we wake up or when we go to bed, but we can do that with our family. And I think it's important for all of us to be speaking about things we're grateful for, because we all want things. I know we want things to be better. You know, that's going to be ongoing. But when we take a moment and pause and just feel grateful, you know, they've said that joy comes from gratitude. And so I think the more we're in gratitude around things, we can feel more joy about our life. And so I know that's important to me. So I'll leave you with that. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me on here. Been looking forward to it, and it was super fun. And thanks for
I'm so happy to have you. I think this is so epic, and I can't wait till this episode launches. And I truly hope that it helps you, you know, having more people find out about what you're doing, share what you're doing, because it's more important that we know. You know, women have an innate way of reaching out and always finding what we want. Men, not so much. And it's good because, like, I love your personality, and I can feel that, you know, your program is, you know, like, I can just feel that the men in there are probably getting what they need. And with all your experience, especially not even like the academic part and the medical part, and, you know, the life experience, that you can offer a lot of guidance I feel.
Yeah,
So,
for me, this wasn't about getting salesy. This isn't a
no,
sales.
no,
No,
but
I didn't take it that way, but I think it's building trust. You know, I think when these platforms like podcasts and different things,
yeah,
you know,
to
we're
get the
all trying
word
to
out.
create an audience, whether we're
Yeah.
selling something or trying to build a podcast. So the more I can be on, you know, podcasts and just speak authentically about who I am and what I'm doing, that's all I cared about. You know, thanks for the plugs and thanks for the follow. You know, people want to follow me. That's great. But really, I'm appreciating just the opportunity to talk, just to talk authentically about myself and to, you know, get parts of my story out there and to just, you know, shed light into the work I'm doing because it's really needed. And the people that are going to find me, they're going to find me. Not every, you know, the people that are ready, it's kind of one of those things. But so I appreciate just the opportunity to be here, and you're super fun. So I appreciate it.
Well, appreciating you too. And we're appreciating our listeners for taking on this and enjoying. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to follow both of us on Instagram, and don't forget to share this, and don't forget to give us a review or a 5-star, and most importantly, putting the notifications on so that you don't miss another episode, because you never know who I'm going to be talking to, who's always going to have some sort of a cycling twist, but they're going to have other stuff to talk about too. So thank you very much, and have yourself an amazing day. Thanks a lot, Aaron.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sylvie. Take care.